Hey guys, today we are going to be going over doing a high shoulder throw with a 24-foot ladder. We'll be breaking it down, doing a couple demos, and then at the end you guys will have some time to ask questions and also get some hands-on practice with it. Before we get started, facilities, we have bathrooms just down this way if you need to use them. And then, like anything on the fire ground, our biggest concern with this is going to be safety. So for this drill, we're going to have our full PPE on, including coats, helmets, and gloves. And then with these, talking about safety, doing this high shoulder throw, it's a little more efficient, could be a little bit faster way to get a ladder up if you're by yourself on a fire and you need to get a building laddered. But if something weird is going on, you've got weird weather conditions where it's super windy, or you've got something going on with the terrain making it hard to do this, this isn't the only way to do it. And if you think it's not going to work, go get a buddy, do a two-person throw, or do some other kind of throw. Because if you drop this ladder, we can't get inside and make our rescue and do what we need to do if we can't get the ladder up. So this is a way to do it, but it's not the way to do it. So breaking this down really quick, of course, the first thing that we need to do is get this ladder up on our shoulder. And there's a couple ways to do that. The easiest, obviously, is just pulling it straight out from the truck onto our high shoulder. And then another way you can do it is starting at a low shoulder and then pressing it up into a high shoulder. And then the third way, and the way that I think is the easiest, is having it on the ground here. We can go ahead and get the ladder on a beam, pick it up from the tip, place it on our shoulder, and then just walk it up. So once we've got the ladder up on our shoulder, we've got it balanced right in the middle there. We're going to pick the spot where we want to place this ladder. We'll go for this window right here. So as we're approaching, we're going to slide the ladder back so we have more of the ladder behind us than in front of us. And this is going to make it a little easier to get that ladder up. And then as we're approaching, of course, we're clearing overhead. We're walking up with the ladder. We are going to keep moving forward. We're not going to stop. And then when we get to about the point where we want to throw our ladder, we're going to do a little squat and pop up. And this, combined with continuing to move forward, is going to give us a little bit more momentum to help get that ladder upright. So now we've got our ladder up, and it's parallel to us. And we want to, of course, get it facing the building so we can place it. So if we are just going to go ahead and place this ladder right now, it's the correct height. We are going to rotate it the way we need it facing the building, with the fly towards us and the bed facing the building, and we can just place it down. If it's not the correct height and we need to raise it, we're going to rotate it the other way, so that the bed is facing us and the fly is facing the building, so we have access to that halyard. We're going to get it locked in, raise it to the height we need it, and then we can set it against the building and then flip it over so we have it facing the correct way for climbing. So we will we'll get our PPE on, and then we'll run through a demonstration of this. All right, so now we got our PPE on. We're going to go ahead and run you guys through a demonstration of throwing this ladder. So we've got our ladder placed, but as you can see, it's a little bit too short like this. If we're going for something like a rescue, we want it maybe one rung higher, or if we're going for ventilation, 2 or 3 rungs higher to get it about at that middle line with the window. So getting this ladder raised up to where it needs to be, we can pull it away from the building and then come around behind it, keeping it locked in. So doing that technique with our knee and our foot to keep this ladder locked in where we need it. We can now raise it to the height we need it, and then place it back down against the window. Fix our climbing angle. And now we're at a good height and a good angle to get a rescue as soon as we get our halyard tied off here. So we'll go ahead and get this taken down and reset. Run through another demo a little bit slower, breaking down what I'm doing. All right, guys, so we did our fast demo, watching me throw the ladder, and then we talked a little bit about what to do with raising it up or lowering it if we have it at the wrong height. So now we're going to go ahead and throw this again a little bit slower, talking about what I'm doing. Then we'll break it down again, and then you guys will have some time to ask questions and run through it yourselves, get some hands-on practice. So first step, obviously, getting it up on our shoulders, getting it on the beam, placing the ladder on our shoulder, walking it up to that balance point there in the middle to where we can get it up. So now we've got a good balanced ladder that we can move around with. So we're coming around nice and easy. We're picking the spot where we want to throw it. Now we're approaching, getting it a little further back, coming up, keep moving, a little squat and pop, and that ladder is up. So now, like I was talking about before, we've got it parallel to us. So we'll say we need to rotate this now. We'll say that this is the correct height. So now we are rotating it, and we can walk it a little bit. This is now the height that we want to get our ladder. So now we are just placing it down against the building. We are a little far out, so we can adjust our angle now. There was that slow demonstration, breaking down the steps in real time of getting this ladder up. So now we're going to break this down, and then we'll have time for you guys to ask some questions and then get your own hands on the ladder. All right, guys, so we talked about throwing this ladder. We watched me throw it once full speed, and then we saw me throw it again, broken down, going a little bit slower, talking about each step as I'm doing it. So now's the time if you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask about this.
Before we get into practicing on our own, can you just explain the differences between ladder placement depending on what your goal is on the fire scene?
Yeah, so where we're putting this ladder based on what our assignment is or what we're trying to accomplish. So let's say we got a rescue. We're going in to do VEIS or something like that. We're going in through this window. We want to place that ladder so the tip is right at level with the window sill. So we're able to get in there, get through that window without having our ladder, halfway sticking through it, obstructing that window as we're trying to get in, and then also as we're trying to get out with the victim. And then another tip with placing a ladder for a rescue out of a window is having, not dramatically, but just a little bit more shallow of a climbing angle. Having that ladder kicked out a little bit further is going to make it a little bit easier to get that victim down. But we don't want to have that ladder too far out, creating a hazard. And then we also want to make sure, especially with a more shallow climbing angle, that we're getting a good footer on that ladder. Another tip with placing ladders for rescue out of a window is you can place two next to each other. So then you've got a little bit more room to work, and you can have a second person up there with you if it's a larger victim, bringing them down those two ladders now instead of one. So let's say we want to ventilate this window. We've got knocked down on the fire. We want to get that window popped, maybe so the interior crew can do some hydraulic ventilation, or maybe we're setting a PPV fan up at a door. We're going to place that ladder now to either side of it instead of directly below it. And we want that ladder placed on the upwind side of the window. So when we pop this window and smoke starts to come out of it, it's not all blowing right back in us, it's blowing away from us. And now we want that tip of that ladder, instead of being underneath it or level with the sill, just about halfway up that window on whatever side is the upwind side of that window. Now let's say we're doing, ventilation, vertical ventilation, or for some other reason we need to get up on that roof. When we place this ladder, we want to place it on the roof, and we want, two to four ish rungs above the roof, or that eave there. And that is so it's safer getting off that ladder, getting onto the roof. We've got a little more room, and also safer getting back on it. And then another reason we want, a few rungs above that edge of the roof is so if we're up on the roof and something starts to get weird and we need to get off of there quickly, we don't have to spend a lot of time looking for that ladder, because we've got a good visible portion sticking up. We can find it quickly and get over to it and get off the roof for whatever reason that is. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I actually just have one more question.
Okay.
So if you're on the roof doing ventilation, I've heard from different people different things, but if you're on the roof doing ventilation, you're supposed to have two means of egress. Is that true?
I don't know if you necessarily have to, but it is recommended. So if you haven't already placed a second ladder, that'd be something that your RIC team could do while they're waiting down there, or an engineer who he's got his lines charged, pressures are good, and now he's not doing anything right now. He's not busy. That's something you could let your IC know. Hey, we're going up on this roof to ventilate. Can you assign Rick or somebody else who's not busy right now to get us a ladder placed, a second ladder placed? And you typically want those on opposing sides of the building. You don't want two ladders right next to each other, because if something is cutting you off from getting to your original one, it's probably going to prevent access to your second ladder as well if they're right next to each other. So we want these ladders maybe on the the Alpha Bravo corner, and then like the Charlie Delta corner, opposite sides of the house. So if something happens and we're cut off from this egress point, we can go the other way over here now.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. If no one else has any other questions, now we've got some time for you guys to get your gear on, and then get some time practicing throwing this ladder, placing it with some different scenarios for some different tasks.